that they would get outside of school. We also use CCS, which is Comprehensive Community Services, for wraparound services to make sure we're involving the community. And then if students are receiving services outside of school, we do develop re-entry plans and follow-up services, so we do a lot of collaborating with them. And then we have counseling and support teams. Each school has a pupil service team, and we also do mental health professional development groups at each school. And then we do reference the DPI mental health framework, and that does coincide with PBIS framework. There's a lot of things that overlap, but we use that framework in determining what we need to do. And then staff trainings, we've done PBIS, like we've talked about. We also have the special education, district behavioral, and autism consultants. They come pretty frequently here to help us with our kids that have behavioral needs or have autism needs. And then we also do consultations with staff. We have newsletters, and we do pupil service meetings.
Okay, well, we as a team would like to thank all of you, and we want to encourage you to come to the elementary school because our kids love to see other adults other than us there. So please come. The high school and middle school also, but the elementary especially love to see you. Matt, you can attest to that. But thank you from all of us.
Yes. Thank you for supporting our unique and special students.
Mm-hmm.
Questions from the board? Thank you all. Item number 9.
This is just an update for the board. Today, actually, I'm developing a pre-expulsion policy. I took the policies that Dean shared with you at our last meeting, and I shared those with Steve Hotel today. We met and we talked, and we drafted a draft of the policy today. We're sending that draft to Dean to get his input. At the next meeting on March 20th, we have a policy update coming to you with policies that are updated just from legislation. So at 5:30 next March 20th, we'll be bringing that forward to you.
Questions from the board? Discussion item?
One question, there's some discussion about zero tolerance and that policy that establishes a zero tolerance protocol. That's a separate policy, is that correct?
Yes, it is. That was our AODA policy. Did you want Dean's input on that? Because he had an opinion on that. That's what I'm wondering.
That discussion with Dean, I thought was of value. And that's something that I think policy should come back.
Goes hand in hand, okay. We did have that out today with Steve Lavelle. I'll make sure that that comes forward to you with Dean's recommendations.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for remembering that one.
Anything else from the board? Again, that'll be in our March meeting as well. Moving on to new business, item number 10A is discussion and possible decision, approval of the CISA 9 shared services contract.
This is just an annual contract that we renew with CISA. We take a look at all the services that we purchase from CISA, and we review that, and this is just our annual contract that we need board approval for.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve that contract.
I'll second. We have a motion by Tomczyk, seconded by Kaiser to approve the CISA 9 shared services contract as presented. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10B is discussion and possible decision, school perception staff survey proposal for 2018.
Annually, we have contracted, we've conducted a staff survey from school perceptions. You've heard 3 of our teams talk about how they use that data to set goals and to measure their success. Last year, that cost was $1,950. There's an additional $1,000. That total cost of $3,860 for that survey to happen annually. The proposal was attached for your review, And tonight we'd be looking for your direction on, continue to do that and collect that data and use that.
How many years in a row have we done this now? Do we see this ever?
2 or 3.
I think we still see value in it. I think, as we look at the school goals and we look at some other things the district's working on, I think we'll see some more change in the direction of some of the results. I do, I still see value in
You
it.
see value.
I believe our administrative team still sees
I
value.
hear that from them, so are we budgeting for it every year now? Is this?
Well, the teams asked about that at the data retreat, is if we could have that every couple years, maybe they could bring forward a recommendation on what you guys think the data. But it is something that you
You're looking
use.
for approval for this evening, correct?
Mhm.
And you're saying that
Unless you
staff,
want me to bring it back.
well, and staff is telling you that they may only need it every 2 years?
I think we had a
Well,
conversation about it.
currently we have goals that are set with looking at tied to those.
Yeah.
But if we were to decide we were gonna do it every couple of years instead of every year, then we would set our goals accordingly.
I
What do
really,
you think,
right?
Katie?
I would support every other, if not every 3 years. I just think like we need the opportunity to implement the goals we have in place right now. So like my reading goal is going on its 3rd year. Like I need to see that data longitudinally to see where else do I need to go and support staff, instruction, my students. So I don't see it necessarily every year. I do a lot of, I talk with my staff, we do surveys, I know Josh and Nate do surveys as well. Like I have that feedback annually from them, so every 3rd year would be beneficial.
Whether you
Amanda?
spend $2,000 a year or not, we're still gonna do this, we're gonna continually survey our staff and look at ways to improve.
I'm not worried about the cost, so to speak, it's just I'm worried about chasing some change every year instead of allowing you to, as you said, digest and see where you're headed. I'm really, may not have looked interested, I'm just very tired, but it's wonderful to see those presentations. We have, in my tenure on this board, when I first started, we didn't see anything like that. And this is good stuff. This is very good stuff.
Being that this is we only did it 2 years, and we had a benchmark, I'd like to see us at least do it the 1 more year, and then maybe because remember last year too, we did not get a lot of feedback from certain groups, and I'd like to see that change, so we incorporate and kind of work the kinks out of it.
I recognize there's value in setting goals for the staff that gets to look at that, and I've watched them use that information, showed up to talk to people about that, but there's also value to me as a board member, because you can come tell me whatever you want, but for me to see the data from your staff that shows improvement in the areas that you set goals, it validates what you tell us that you're working on, and then when we see the positive results, it helps us recognize that we're moving in the right direction. It also identifies other areas where you might look at and say, what could we do differently? So I would agree with Diane to do it 1 more year, and then evaluate that, and maybe have that be part of the conversation at your next data retreat to say, how would we use this in the future, and bring us a recommendation regarding that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the staff survey for 2018 with the direction, as Mr. Barnes said, that we hear feedback from their data retreat for next year.
I second that.
Motion by Tomcheck, seconded by Barnes, to approve the school perception staff survey for 2018. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10C is discussion and possible decision, teacher compensation Quarter 2 meeting update and request for approval of proposed changes to miscellaneous compensation Appendix G.
So our committee met, I'll just keep it very brief. We continue to meet to talk about what our goals are of compensation. One of our biggest goals is to energize and to have our staff continually learn and grow. That professional development data is overwhelming, that our staff is engaged in learning and growing. We took a look at our miscellaneous compensation. We listened to some recommendations coming forward and the committee would make a recommendation for you for changes to the miscellaneous compensation appendix G. After reviewing all of the data and information that was shared, they would recommend with moving our head golf coach from a Class C to a Class B for a cost of $726.63. Moving a golf assistant coach from a Class D to a Class C for $726.63. And for adding one curling coaching position to our Class D for $1,453.26. Reminder to the board that the coaching positions don't add until they've been a club for at least 3 years. So that they've sustained as a club and started a club. We heard tonight about yoga. That's one of the clubs that is in year 1 and will probably be coming forward in the future. There's a whole data sheet that they have to fill out and present to the committee. That's our recommendations coming forward from the Q2 compensation meeting.
The basis for those requests, in the case of golf, are we seeing more student involvement in golf? or
We're
is it
seeing more student involvement, we're seeing increase in competitions, we're seeing more time out of season, more practice time, just the hours and the work that's put into that position.
Curling speaks for itself since the Olympics.
Right? We're gonna have some
Momentum is that
Olympic
sport.
Just wanna go
gold.
curling.
Yeah.
Until you're sweet.
Stone Park.
Guess what? If you're on the team, you're sweet.
Discussion from the board or a motion regarding these changes?
What was our total amount we've increased that?
About 20, we probably don't need this for those 3 positions.
We have a head and we have an assistant. Those are the costs. Again, you had your full committee. We have Liz and Donna who are here. Part of our committee that listened to that and came forward with a recommendation.
And do we go after any girls to go for golf?
It's always been an option when I was in school, there
Right.
were girls on the golf
I'm just,
team.
to make it more interesting.
Sure.
I'm interested in it. Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, leave it alone.
Is curling co-ed at this point?
It is.
And
It
is it a competitive team or is it still?
So our
Yes.
our curling team competes against East,
Yes.
West, Everest.
Yes.
Yeah.
I value the work of the team and the work that they listen to. They weigh everything. They talk about it. They discuss it. So,
Chairman, I'll motion to approve the changes to appendix G.
yep.
There's a motion by Tomchek, seconded by Gewis to approve the changes as requested for Appendix G. Further discussion from the board.
Matt, just one question. And have we started posting these now since came from state, the convention about how these should be posted so others can attend the meetings? So it's not a violation?
Well, we talked about that with Dean. So I talked about that with Dean, and this was a committee that I organized to constantly hear feedback. So it's not a board-driven committee. So Dean said, well, we're coming forward on March 20th with a policy that says any board committee that you direct. So you've directed the personnel committee, you've
Right.
directed the, that policy will be coming forward to you on March 20th. As an update to legislation, so that will change our policy. This committee, he said, it's not board directed. We decided, once we implemented the compensation committee, for us to continue to meet. So I wanted to continually hear the voices. My way of hearing those voices is to have this committee. So he did not think that was one that's board directed.
Okay.
But certainly, we just agreed to meet 4 times a year to hear the voices of the staff at all different levels. So he did not think that was a committee, but you'll see that March 20th, that policy about committees, because of the Appleton case, will come forward
Right.
for revision.
So we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries as well. Moving on to item 10D, it's a discussion on Mosinee school security. Go ahead, Matt.
I asked that this be added late. I missed our planning meeting because I was at a law enforcement conference, and it just so happened there, one of the speakers was a parent who lost a child in Sandy Hook. And over the course of that week, then we have a shooting in Florida, which amplifies the issue. I don't want to sound alarmist or that we're reacting to national media and what's going on, but I also recognize that in 2 of our schools, you can walk right through the front door, and there's no one there to stop you, there's no one there to make sure that you belong in the school, and that our schools have many security issues. So my intention here was, I see we're listed as discussion only, so I won't be making a motion, but it was to address with this board that I have concerns and think that we should be taking some action to find out what can be done in our schools to make them more secure, post-failed referendum, what those costs would be, and so that that information can be brought back to us to prioritize it and make decisions and look at ways that we can have a safer, more target-hardened school.
I've got 4 phone calls this week too about the swimming area. You know, you can walk right in there all the way up to 11 o'clock. I thought they closed it at, I wasn't aware, but the Kresge Center, they said you can walk right in. Pretty cool. That's why it's open.
The back entrance you can, for the community uses that.
Yeah, so I mean, who knows who's going in or coming out in 1 hour. So I guess that should be, I know they always wanted to leave the pool open for the swimmers, but I guess it's the safety, you know. Do something.
There's ways to harden too. I know the students have to pass through, but
All of that was addressed in all the referendums.
That was the,
Excuse me?
All that was addressed in all the referendums.
I agree.
It wasn't important to people though.
Well,
I'm not saying it's not important to you or to other members of this, but I'm just telling you, the general public did not support changing our schools to provide heightened security. Maybe enough kids have died now to support that, maybe more need to. But our schools have big holes, big holes.
and my hope is that, probably in the next meeting, or we motion, but that we would support identifying what those holes are and what the cost to fill them is, and so that we know, outside of a grand construction project addressed in the referendum, what it would take. It's not gonna, my expectation is it's not gonna be as pretty, but the front door locking doesn't have to be pretty, and I have absolutely no idea what that costs. I don't know what our ability to be able to make those changes are as a school district right now, or what our options were, but step 1 is, what does it look like and what does it cost? And I think that I'll be asking again that it's another agenda item with possible decision or action at our next school board meeting.
I fully support that.
yeah, I support that too. To try to bridge the gap we currently have with the proposal and seek some solutions for issues that we know we have. Maybe not the Cadillac, but maybe something in between.
You know what, the board will all remember, we have a nationally recognized speaker on this subject that lives right in our school district.
Who's awesome?
Who's awesome, who knows all this stuff, shakes his head at this community every day, because it's huge holes. You can lock all the doors you want at the end of the hallways, but they're glass, unhardened glass. But we have a company right here in town that does that. You know, lock the door, great, 1 hammer, you're in.
Yeah, it's not a simple solution, but there are lots of steps. Some of it has to do with the policies and procedures and staff responsibilities and how many exits we have, how they open, when they're open in the morning, who monitors those. There are lots of different components to a process like that. Some of them are made easier with new buildings that do new things, but I think there's things we need to do here, so.
I think there's models we can follow. I know when, again, we had this conversation not that long ago, we talked about New Holstein being a high school that bolted on some security. Obviously, that's what we're gonna end up having to do. Because a referendum just isn't in our future. So,
What are the pool hours?
They're early in the morning, different days. I know,
They've
there's 8,
changed,
9.
they've changed throughout the school year too, so that currently, that door 11 does stay open till 11:15.
That's a Kresge one,
The back
It's in the
side of the
Right
truck.
by the Kresge gym.
What is it, Kresge door? Is the Kresge door always locked?
No, that's locked.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, the front.
There are
that
times
front
when that's
entrance,
open as
that's
well.
That's what I was told, I was open too.
That's door 1 and door 11 is in the back side, and they're open till 11.
Can we take a couple moments and flesh out what members of this board would like to see on that agenda item? Because it's broad in scope and range. Mark's interested in the ordinance, and I think it's a valid point. However, that means, that discussion that just took place means nothing to me without knowing how many members of the community utilize that pool at that hour of the evening.
Are you asking for, identify what information
Yeah,
needs to be gathered?
we need to provide, our superintendent, these are the things we want here to talk about to address this issue, okay? So that we can properly post that, have that information ahead of time, and maybe some of us will read it prior to coming to the meeting, and we'll digest it and talk about it. I would like to know about what it's gonna cost to harden the windows.
And I think the reason Matt isn't going in the form of a motion is the way it's posted, so are you making that in the form of a motion, Corey, or you just,
No, I think we can flesh out
you're
the
giving them
information.
direction on?
The information that our superintendent needs to bring back before this body to discuss and then make motions. I mean, so if we don't take action, if we just leave it the way it is, now we gotta have the discussion again. And we gotta go out for bids and proposals, all that kind of stuff. As it sits right now, you're middle to end of next school year before you're doing anything. Because the summer projects are planned, done. And you're not gonna throw more on his plate, so we need to accelerate that discussion now. That's my point.
I agree totally with you. I would start with, I guess what was in my mind is, to your point, I would like to see what it takes to create the areas that someone could access their school to be shatterproof glass, where at least it can't be hit by a hammer and all crumpled to the ground and have someone jump through it. I would like to see all the entrances of our schools secured. I know that the elementary school is, you can't just walk in, but I'd like to see that same type of security in both the middle school and the high school. And I think we have to look at what are the community needs, to Mark's point, what are the community needs with the Kresge Center and their expectations, and how does that conflict with securing the school so it's not open to anybody that wants to walk in. Those were my starters.
I'd like to see us have controlled access and, not just a lock and door, but
That's fine.
I normally have my badge on for work. Key card, yeah. It's not that big a deal.
Students can have them, employees can have them.
We have thousands of people have it.
There may be some providers that can help us evaluate those things and categorize them and cost them.
That's
That's where my mind's going.
next
Those
step.
suggestions are probably a piece of the puzzle, but not a comprehensive review. And providers that have that experience with going through this process before, we should learn from them. We should take their advice.
Thoughts on those?
Actually, I don't have the experience. I would lean on people that have done it.
I'd like to see Mr. Hayes come speak to this body.
I agree. I think that, I'm not trying to give anyone 40 hours worth of work between now and the next meeting, but identifying what resources districts in Wisconsin have for that type of planning, and I would agree with you to have him speak to us about what direction to take.
And I appreciate the value of plans, there are things that you can do, don't need a plan. Making the damn windows so don't break, pretty easy decision on my part. Value plans, get that, but
The reality is that's getting an estimate and having someone measure the windows.
damn straight.
It's X number of dollars a square foot, and you just decide how thick the film you want for that.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Does that give you any correction? Anything else from the board? in terms of direction.
Well, again,
Carolyn,
think about the kids that are already in the school.
Yeah.
They do it inside the school already, and not going inside.
I mean,
You gotta think about that too.
these are kids who have mental health problems, spend more money on helping them to grow. Instead of wasting it on glass and door. They can come through every single window. Why would you?
Well,
Do you understand what we're talking about,
I
Carol?
know what you're talking about,
So
but
you would rather we spend money trying to help them and leave the glass the way it is?
I'm telling you.
I think you have to do
can
both.
come through every glass
You're doing
window.
No, Carol was saying you can't after you harden the glass.
No, I know, but you have to do every window. not
Yeah,
just the
that's what we're
door.
talking about, every single window. In fact, that's my opinion, that every hallway that's not a daily access shouldn't be visible to the outside, maybe the top line of windows, but
All the others.
every other one should be blacked out, so
So
you can't see who's in the hall.
I think the point, Carolyn, is there are common sense things that we need to do to address issues so we can try and prevent ourselves from being one of these schools that has an issue, which could happen at any school. But number two, to your point, this isn't a lock the doors and we're done. There's a lot of discussion that has to be had around ways to address those issues. And I don't think anyone here tonight is prepared to do that. It's identifying what those issues as a comprehensive plan, to include some things that you can do that are very simple.
Really mitigating risk. And you're gonna take a number of, you're gonna mitigate risk at different levels. And you're gonna mitigate risk through different mechanisms, whether it's physical security, whether it's mental health. It's gonna be all of the above.
Yeah, right.
Well, and to kind of take on if Carolyn is trying to get across, was not what we're doing to the building to make it strong, but what are we gonna do to the staff on the inside? I know we did the Alice training, but I'm talking about stuff like that. Do we do it every other year with the staff? You know, that's what I think what she was trying to get at. Protect the people that are already inside the school if you have something inside as a threat. So, not just the outside, but what else we can do for, if this is a discussion and we're doing about, it's overall.
There's a lot to this.
Right.
I misunderstood you though. I thought you were going a completely different direction.
Yeah, so do I.
No, it's, well, when you look at what happened in Florida and all that, these were all people that they knew in school, people that you know.
Well, I would disagree with you when you look nationally at the school shootings and tragedies that have occurred. That's a very small percentage of the shooters who go to the school and kill a bunch of people. Some of them are disgruntled students that had issues. So, the vast majority of the shootings, that is not the case. So you have two different threats. You have in-school threats with kids who might be dealing, and what does a teacher do in that situation? You can look nationally right now and see there's an enormous debate. Everything from hide and hold a blanket over you to arm the teachers. I'm not advocating for either of those, but that's just not accurate that most of these shooters are students coming out of the school. But both can be discussed. That's the point behind putting it on a future agenda item with a decision behind it.
Any further from the board on that topic, Carolyn?
No.
No?
I'm fine
Anyone
with
else?
it.
Okay, so, with your list,
On the list.
if you're prepared to talk about that.
Think
at the
about that in
March
the next
meeting.
few days, please feel free to email me.
Yes.
And you, Matt, did Mark leave?
We'll move on then to agenda item number 11, which is the Curriculum and Standards Committee meeting report from our February 2018 meeting.
Great. Nice to see you, everybody. Good evening. My report can be brief this evening because we had such extensive and rigorous reports from the school teams doing a fantastic job. As a Curriculum and Standards Committee, we don't have the privilege of having them come every month and give such extensive information to our team. So we highlight the main goals that are going on that fall within our agenda items relating to our strategic plan. So under vision, we talked about high quality staff development as a standing agenda item, and we talked about how on February 23rd, an important day was an in-service day. Teachers spent the entire day continuing their mapping process, which aligns their curriculum to the standards. And great day, it was a long day. Each building team also took about an hour of time to focus on some of their building initiatives, which they talked about this evening. The middle school and the elementary school spent some time building staff capacity on PBIS, which is that behavioral support system. And at the high school, we focused in on our ACP, our academic and career planning initiatives and goals, and getting staff feedback. So it was a great day of learning, lots of rigor involved, great staff support by our coaches, our literacy coaches, our admin team, and great collaboration by teachers, a lot of hard work. So that was an update there. Under our closing achievement gaps standing agenda item, as Mr. Sween already presented with his esteemed team, they came and did a version of what you saw tonight about their experiences with that RTI workshop that they've been attending, and elaborated on the school improvement goal for the middle school. Because closing achievement gaps is a huge part of our systematic foundation as a curriculum and standards committee and as a curriculum and standards leader in the district, it was great to hear from Josh's team, which you heard extensively about this evening, on how they are building multi-levels and systems of support for kids. And our last agenda item was an update on any accountability items that we have, and just letting the curriculum and standards team know that we have some huge standardized testing windows coming up. As was mentioned this evening, we did the ACT test for our 11th graders today at the high school. Tomorrow is the work keys assessment. We also have the forward, which used to be Badger and used to be WPCE standardized testing for grades 3 through 8 and 10 coming up, the window March 19th through May 4th. And the ACT Aspire, which is for 9th and 10th graders, April 9th through May 11th. So that's a huge accountability measure for us. There's a lot of training and protocols and processes and procedures that go into that. That takes a lot of time for staff and administration. So just an update on what was happening in terms of that for accountability.
Questions from the board? So I see you have 2 extended field trips you're looking for
Yes.
approval on as well?
We had 2 extended field trips, one proposed by Carla, dual at the high school for a
Make a
trip
motion
to.
to approve the field trips as presented in our board packet.
I'll second that.
Great. That's wonderful. Thank you, on behalf of Josh and Carla.
We have
and
a
the
motion
team.
by Tomchek, seconded by Barnes, to approve the extended field trip requests as identified in our board packet. Further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 12. Thank you, Julie.
Absolutely.
Moving on to item number 12, the building committee meeting report.
You're seeing my meeting packets and the board book. Building committee had a brief discussion about the energy efficiency projects. We were updated by Steve about the science room progress and ongoing facility issues, and of course the MCAA. There's a short list, shortest list I've seen in a long time of summer construction projects. That was part of the board